Hello, today we're going to look at backing up and restoring your Morpheus appliance. So I've created two Morpheus appliances. The first one is this one here. You can see that I've created a user, I've created a role for that user, I've integrated an AWS cloud, I've created a group, and I've provisioned a couple of instances. We're going to create a backup of this Morpheus appliance, and then we're going to restore that backup to a different Morpheus appliance, which is this one. You can see the only thing on this appliance is it's just had the installation done. There's no instances, there's no users or groups or clouds created. It's just been installed. That's it. Okay, so let's go back to the original appliance where we've got our instances provisioned. This is the one that we're going to run the backup on. Let's have a look at the actual Morpheus appliance backup. So Morpheus will actually configure you a Morpheus appliance backup that you can run. If you go to backups and then backups, you will see that you have a Morpheus appliance backup created, and it's part of a job called Morpheus appliance. In order to get this backup created, there is a setting that you need to enable. If you go to administration and settings and click on the backups tab, you will see that there's an enable backup appliance. So when enabled, a backup will be created to back up the Morpheus Appliance database. So we need to make sure that we've got that enabled. You can also schedule this backup, the appliance backup, which is a good thing to do. You need to have scheduled backups enabled as well. So I'm going to turn that on as well, and then click save. So let's go back and have a look at our Morpheus appliance backup and the job that it is part of. So I can either go to backups and backups again, or I can just click the link here. So I'm going to click the link there. This has taken me into the Morpheus appliance backup. You can see that it's not actually run yet. There's a history here of the last 5 backups that were run. There's no data showing there. You can see we've got 0 total backups. So the quickest and the easiest way to run a Morpheus appliance backup is just to click the Run Now button. So I'm going to press that now. You'll see that in the backup archives section, you get the status. It says start requested. So the backup is running. If I refresh the screen, it shouldn't take too long. There we go. It's only a small backup, 10 megabytes, 7 seconds to complete, and it's succeeded. Okay, I can download that backup and we can take a look at it. So it's going to download it to my local system. There we go. And if I open that backup up, there we go, you can see the contents of the backup file. It's essentially just a MySQL dump file. Okay, so this contains all of the database information, the database content, everything that Morpheus needs to recover an appliance. Okay, so what we'll do now, we've already got a backup created. Let's take a look at the actual job. If you want to schedule the Morpheus backup, the scheduling is done at the job level. If you look at the actual Morpheus appliance backup itself, if you edit it, you can select a storage location for it, maybe an S3 bucket. So if you want to store the backup somewhere else, and you can see that the job that it's defined to. So the scheduling is done at the job level. So if we go to backups and jobs, we've only got one job at the moment. We'll click on the backup job name, and you can see now that you can also run the Morpheus appliance job itself, and that will run all of the backups that are contained within this job. You can see that because we've already run the backup, we've already got one successful backup that's been created, and you can see the schedule here. So it's next due to run on the 8th of May at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, it's probably a good idea to have at least a daily scheduled Morpheus appliance backup. I can edit the job, and you can see that I can change the schedule, but I've only got a choice of 2 schedules, daily at midnight and weekly on Sunday at midnight. These are the 2 schedules that Morpheus provides you out of the box. So what we'll do now is we'll create a new schedule that will execute at 6 p.m. every evening. So the schedules are actually created under library and automation. Click on execute scheduling and then add a new schedule. So I'm going to call this schedule daily at 6 p.m. I'm going to run it in the Europe London time zone, and then you just enter your schedule details here, which is in cron format. You can also click on these grey boxes here, so I can just choose I want it to run at 1800, okay, and then save changes. And if I edit it again, you can see that it's actually put in the correct cron format for me. So now I've created my schedule, I can go back to my backup job and edit it and set that schedule on the backup job. And there it is. Save changes, click on the job, and you can now see that it's going to run my backup on the 3rd of May, which is today, at 6 p.m. Another way that you can run a Morpheus Appliance backup is to do it via the command line. So here I've SSH'd to my Morpheus Appliance. This is the one that we were just looking at, the top window. Okay, and you might want to do this if you're doing a a planned backup. You might want to shut down the Morpheus UI service to make sure that nobody's actually doing anything, so that you get a backup when the system is quiet and nobody's running anything. So what we'll do now is we'll run a backup manually from the command line, and we'll do it with the Morpheus UI service shutdown. So the first thing, I'm logged in as root, so I don't need to do sudo. So the first thing is to stop the Morpheus UI service. Just to confirm that it's shut down. There we go. You can see that the Morpheus UI service is shut down. What I need to do now is I need to run the MySQL dump command from my SSH session. In order to do that, I need to know the password of the Morpheus database. And the password can be found in the Morpheus-secrets.json file. So we'll just take a look at that. So there, it's in etc Morpheus, Morpheus-secrets.json. If you just look at that file, the contents, you'll see there's a MySQL section. That is actually the Morpheus database user password that we can use to connect to the database. So we now need to run the MySQL dump command and to tell the database to create a MySQL dump for us. So the command to do that is opt Morpheus embedded MySQL bin MySQL dump. Okay, and then you need to specify the user, so -u Morpheus. You need to specify the host, so this is an all-in-one appliance, so I can just specify localhost. Okay, obviously if you were running this, if you had a 3-node architecture with a distributed Percona database and you were running the MySQL dump command from the appliance, you would need to point it to the IP address of the database. I need to give it the name of the database, which is Morpheus, and then -p to say that I'm going to specify a password, and then redirect the output to /tmp/Morpheus_dump.sql. It's going to ask me for a password. This is the password for the Morpheus database user, which is this one. So I can just copy that and paste it in. Okay, and now this is now doing a MySQL dump of the database. And that's complete. If we just have a look. So there's the MySQL dump file. If we just check the contents, so we'll just do a head. And you can see there it is there. Okay, so the backup of the Morpheus appliance has been successful. What we need to do now is we need to copy this MySQL dump file over to the target system. So this is the system here that we're going to restore, the one at the bottom. So I'm just going to do a SCP copy the file, okay, that should have copied over, and now we have the file on the target system. And if you look at the size, you can see the size is exactly the same as on the source system. Okay, so now what we can do now is we can do a restore of this file on our target system. Now, before we do the restore, we need to shut down the Morpheus UI service. So you can see everything's running. So we'll stop the Morpheus UI service. Okay, we just check the status. Everything's stopped. We need to look at the Morpheus-secrets JSON file on this node. So this is the password that we need to connect into the database that's running on this system. Okay, it's not going to be the same password as on the other system. So now we know what the password is. We can run that command again. So opt Morpheus embedded MySQL bin MySQL -u specify the Morpheus user -h. It's an all-in-one appliance again, so we can do the local host. Specify the database. It's the same database name. It's Morpheus -p because we're going to specify the password, and then we want to redirect in the Morpheus -dump.sql file. It's going to ask us for a password, so we specify this password here, and then we'll let it restore. So the restore is completed. We can now start the Morpheus UI service. And then we'll just check the status. Now remember, when you restart the Morpheus UI service, it does take a little bit of time for the service to actually start. So if we just look at the log files and view that. And what we're looking for is the Morpheus logo in the log file. So here is the Morpheus logo in the log file, which shows that the Morpheus application has restarted successfully. If we now go back to the appliance and sign in again. So this is the target appliance that we're signing into. This is the one that didn't have any clouds, users, roles, or any instances provisioned. And you can see now there's our 2 instances. So if we go to provisioning and instances, there's the 2 instances, and we should have a group created called all clouds. We should have a cloud, an AWS cloud. We should have a role created. There we go, and a user as well. So this shows that the restore has been successful. There is just one thing to watch out for. So this is the appliance fully restored. If we now just go back to our appliance backup, okay, and I'll click on the actual Morpheus appliance backup. Let's see what happens when we try and run the appliance backup now. You can see that it's says start requested. you can see that we're actually getting an error. Okay, so it says warning, MySQL dump warning, using a password on the command line interface can be insecure. MySQL dump got an error, access denied for Morpheus, for the user Morpheus at localhost when trying to connect. So if you ever do restore a Morpheus Appliance database backup from one system to another, there is an additional step that you need to take to make sure that the backups will continue to run successfully. Okay, so what we need to do is we can log into the Morpheus database. So we're going to do this on the target system. This is the one that we've just restored the database to. Before we log in, we need to get the database password. Okay, so there's the password we're going to use. So that's the Morpheus user password on this system. If we just take a look at what it was set on the old system, okay, you can see it's a different password. Okay, so we're going to log into the Morpheus. We're going to log into MySQL. As a user Morpheus on the local host, and we're going to connect to the database Morpheus. We need to give it this password. Try that again. Okay, so we're logged in. Okay, so if we have a look at what the password that's currently set, so the Morpheus Appliance backup has an ID of 1. So what we can do is we can say select target underscore password from Morpheus dot backup, where name equals Morpheus Appliance. So you can see that the password that's set in that backup is actually the password from the system that we restored the database from. So we need to update this password. This is why the backup job is, or the Morpheus Appliance backup is failing. It's because it's referencing the old password from the original database, whereas now the database on our new system has got a different password, so we need to update that password. So it's really simple to do. So we just run an update on Morpheus.backup, and we set SSH host equals 127.0.0.1 and target underscore password equals, and then we can paste in the password. And say where ID equals 1. Okay, and then if we run that, run this command again, see that the password's been updated. This line, we don't need to change this in this example, but obviously because we're still working with an all-in-one appliance, but if you had a 3-node architecture and you'd restored your database to another 3-node appliance, the SSH host that's going to have a different IP address. This needs to be the IP address where the database is accessible on. Okay, so that there might be occasions where you need to update that as well. So now if we go back to our backup job, okay, and try and run it again. You can see now that it's succeeded, and we now no longer get the error. One final thing to check is the appliance URL. You can see that we have an appliance, we're using IP addresses for the URL, but the IP address of our appliance is 3.81.136.65. If we actually go and look at the appliance URL under Administration Settings Appliance, you can see that it's actually referencing the original server's appliance URL. So as a final step, we just need to update the appliance URL there and save changes. And that completes this video of Morpheus Appliance Backups and Restore. I hope that you found this video informative and useful. Thank you.